new look for Brit Asia TV, and we've got a brand new show. Welcome to Sunny and Shay's Social Experiment.
Now, if you would like to get involved with the show, you can always find us on all the social platforms, on the Facebook, on the Twitter, and on the Snapchat.
You certainly can. It's at Brit Asia TV and at Sunny and Shay. Tonight, our show is something that we've been talking about for quite some time on Brit Asia TV. Very simple. It's a very basic process. We have taken 4 individuals from across the country. They've never met each other. They do not know about each other's backgrounds. And tonight, we want to ask them one simple question and find out what they really think.
So when we got these guys into the room, we took away 2 of their identities, which is their name, and also they couldn't see each other either.
If you look at it in today's society, the minute you meet someone, the first thing you'll do, whether you realise it or not, is judge them based on their background, their ethnicity, their gender, and possibly even their religion. Well, tonight, that is not going to be possible, as we're going to introduce you to Mr. Orange, Mr. Blue, Mr. Red, and Mr. Green. The topic of discussion is one that perhaps many do not like to have, but on Brit Asia TV, we're definitely not going to hide away from it.
It is one of those subjects that you can get weighed in on as well. And if there's any other subjects that you want us to talk to about in the future, you can always send us an email.
You can drop us an email on Sunny and Shay at BritAsia TV. A good evening and welcome to Mr. Orange, Mr. Blue, Mr. Red, and Mr. Green. Tonight, we want to discuss the LGBT community. For some individuals, we also tonight are going to be talking about homosexuality, but we really want to focus on what is happening here within the UK, on why it is that for a lot of people, they find they cannot come out to not only their families, but to their communities. I want to start off by asking you, Mr. Orange, do you think you can be gay and have a religion?
Hi, my name is Sully. I'm in digital marketing and I'm from Redditch. I see why not. Your sexual orientation has nothing to do with what beliefs and faith you have. So I don't think those 2 things coincide with each other.
What about yourself, Mr. Blue? Where do you stand on the LGBT community, or even just being gay?
Hello, my name's Kakan. I'm a support worker from Birmingham.
I think it's something that you were born with, and you can be whatever identity you want to be. You can be gay, lesbian, transgendered, you can be whatever faith you want to be, whatever religion you want to be, because you just have to be you and just be accepted in society.
Where do you stand on this, Mr. Red?
Hi guys, I'm Paz, I'm a recruitment manager and I'm from Birmingham. I believe that there is, when you die, there's no gender, there is no sexuality, so therefore in the eyes of God, we're all equal.
Mr. Green, what do you think of this subject?
My name's Imran, I'm from Coventry, I'm a mechanical engineer. On this subject, religion and your sexual orientation goes hand in hand, because you are born either male or female. The choice that you make are life choices, and realistically you're going against a religion of whatever your background you come from.
And if someone was, fighting with their sexuality, for example, and they were finding it difficult to come out to their community, what would you advise them? I'll start off with Mr. Green.
Well, depending upon the person, who they are, realistically, if they're male, then they were born male for a reason, to be a male, not to be a female, not to be a transgender, not to choose what they want to be, because they were born that way for a reason. Now, they're going against their religion, whether they be Christian or an Asian or whatever culture they're from.
Okay.
Realistically, you are born either a male or a female.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, I'm sorry, but you're not just born male or female, because currently and over the millennia we've had people who are transgendered or people who are transsexual and they identify in different ways, and sexual orientation and sexual identity are 2 different things, and your gender is very different to how what your desires are and what your needs are and how you identify.
So desires and needs are something that is about personal preference.
It's not just about personal preference. You can't just wake up one day and say, oh, today I'm going to be gay, and tomorrow I choose to be lesbian. But
that's what's happening.
It's not.
That is what's happening. There is people who, for a month or for a period of a month to 2 months, they'll say, well, do you know what? I'm a man, but do you know what? I want to dress like a woman.
I think you're confusing.
At the end of the day, they want to be females, but they're not females.
No. There is a difference between a drag queen and somebody who wants to become female. There's completely different, because you can have somebody who's heterosexual and they can choose to be a drag queen. You can have somebody who's
that's a choice they're making.
Yeah, that's a choice of heterosexual.
Okay, let's get Mr. Red in for a second.
There is actually, if you read the statistics, and this is about transgenders now, right?
Okay.
A lot of male to female transgenders actually still choose to be with women, and they identify themselves as lesbians. Yeah. But again, I agree. It's something that they can't change. They're born that way. They were born male for whatever reason. But yes, there is genetic differences which makes them want to change their gender.
There's quite a few different elements that have been brought into the discussion, so if we can bring it back just for a moment to focus on being gay. Mr. Orange, what do you think about what's been said? And then we will a little bit later on take on the discussion to being transgender. What's your perspective on it?
Personally, I think Mr. Blue and Mr. Red, they've got some good points there. You can't simply just wake up one day and choose to prefer a different, like, for example, can't prefer to the same sex or the opposite sex in that sense. But then what Mr. Green said, that also does make sense. We were, well, you know, human nature as it stands, the whole, you know, story of like Adam and Eve, for example, and human population, our whole purpose down to the very like roots of like our genetics is to reproduce. When you combine a male with a female.
What do you have to say about that, Mr. Blue?
But even people, when you say we're here to reproduce, but then you get many people who are, you know, identify as heterosexual, but they can't reproduce for whatever reason. Do you know what I mean? So you can't just say we're here to reproduce because there are people out there in the world who cannot reproduce, and they identify as straight people.
Mr. Blue,
so you know,
wanted to comment on this.
Well, there's a couple of points raised there.
Yeah.
First of all, if you look at, you're talking about scriptures. Those scriptures were written probably, you know, 3,000 years ago, and actually homosexuality was very rife. It was also acceptable. These narrow-minded views were put down in scriptures because it was very, very addictive, I suppose, was a word. If you look at the history of it, so these narrow-minded views came in because yes, they wanted to save the population.
Mr. Green, what do you have to say that, you know, these scriptures
the funny thing that he just mentioned regarding the scriptures, because in the Muslim script there was a whole nation. They were known as the nation of Lut. The whole nation was destroyed simply because they chose all their men over women. The whole clan of male. There was a population of I think 60,000 people within that nation that were destroyed simply because they chose to be gays.
No, that's
historical proof.
There is historical proof.
No, there's not historical proof, to be honest. Because,
yes, there is.
No, there isn't, because if the whole population of, as you quote, 60,000, there was women and children who were also destroyed in that story of Lut. And also, there is also not just about homosexuality, as you claim it is. It's about incest, it's about rape, it's about greed, it's about power, it's about corruption, it's about brutality, it's about, you know, a whole load of other issues. You're focusing on the sex act because the men, they wanted to dominate the two guests, which were angels who came down to visit, and they were so beautiful. Of course, they were asexual, they had no identity as such, but they were so beautiful that heterosexual men were taken in by it and they wanted to have sex with them. That's where that story comes from. But somewhere along the line it's been twisted.
So can I ask this question? We're going into religion text that is in the past. There's some people might be watching this show right now, young men or women, or people who are still trying to work out what gender they are if they're still confused about it. How do we move the conversation on and take away from religion and just look at people for who they are today and then have them the confidence to come forward? Because that's what we are talking about. Because there are still people who can't feel confident to come out to their community, to their children, to their families, and whatever confusing time they're going through, they don't feel confident enough to have that discussion openly.
Can I raise something?
Go on.
I mean, the gentleman next to me,
Mr. Green.
Mr. Green raised a point about, you know, the Muslim community, for example. There are so many Muslim men sleeping with other men, yet they're married. And if you look at the STD statistics passed on to women, it is actually quite disgusting. Yet, if it was more acceptable,
but it's also if you talk about Catholicism, if you talk about Christianity, they have a same kind of rhetoric when it comes down to the way that they do. No, I'm saying talking about if you want to take it back to religion, there is all kinds of religions that normally don't look positively towards the gay or lesbian community.
I think if people
it's not just the Muslim community and the religion, is it?
If people are truly religious,
Yes.
they accept everybody. There's
Yes.
tolerance. Okay,
Yes.
that is
Yes.
a true religious person.
Okay.
But someone with narrow-minded views, in my opinion, they're not religious because they're opinionated
And they're passing judgment onto others.
Passing judgment onto others, but the unfortunate thing
But
is
you
with
see,
that.
at the end of the day, we live in
Go
a
ahead.
day and age where it's freedom of speech.
Yes.
So if my view is to literally be blunt and tell you or tell whoever it is to their face that this is how I feel about you, then at the end of the day, I'm being honest with that person and telling them that, you know what, I don't and I do not.
How would you react if your son was gay? If you had a child and he was gay, are you going to kick him out?
I wouldn't kick him out. I'd literally knock some sense into him and show him what happens in the past.
So do you believe knocking sense into someone is going to shake them out of being the
Violence
person
is
that
wrong,
they are?
my friend. Violence is wrong.
That was probably said the wrong way. If I say it correctly, I would actually show them.
Do you go out and beat gay people in the streets at the moment then?
No, but let's finish what he's saying, how he would deal with his scenario with his...
literally explaining. If I voice my opinion to yourself or whoever, for example, say Shay is here, if he was gay, if I knew he was gay and he was sitting with me, I'd voice my opinion to him and say, do you know what? You're gay. Me personally, I don't like gay people because at any point in time, I could have you trying to touch me or feel me.
But what if
now,
let's
me,
bring it back.
now,
Let's bring it back
let him
for
just
a
finish,
second.
guys. Let him finish.
Let's bring it back to what Mr. Red's given you a scenario, because I think, Mr. Red, you have a fair point. We're here in the UK, and at any time, if you become a parent, and we're going to ask you, Mr. Green, again, if you became a parent, if you were a father to a son, and he came home, and he said to you, Dad, I'm coming out to you, and I am gay. Now, you have just retracted and said, I don't believe what I said before. You wouldn't knock someone out. Okay, fine, that's initial reaction. So we're asking you again, what would you say in that scenario to your son? How would you react?
I'd want to know where the hell he got that idea from.
If he said I was born with that, okay, in
then
this
I'd slap
scenario,
him.
I'm
If he said he was born with that, I'd slap him and ask him the question again. Where the hell did you get that idea from?
So you were saying you don't believe that you can be born gay or be born a lesbian or be born transgender.
And why would you?
Because that is a personal choice.
Yeah, but why would you? If somebody you just said talking about having an open freedom of speech discussion, blah blah blah. So you're saying at the same time that your lad comes to you and says I'm gay, and you would say you would physically slap the child and ask him again, and then slap him again. So on the one minute you're saying about freedom of speech, and then the next minute you're sort of physically assaulting you.
There's freedom of speech and there's a conversation between a father and a child.
Yeah, but you just said twice. You just said 3 times that you would slap the child.
Yes.
But at the
end of the
where
day,
did he get the idea from? You don't get the idea to become gay or lesbian.
Yeah.
So let me ask you,
It's
a choice.
Okay,
where does that choice come from?
No, you don't get a choice of being gay.
It's a decision you're making.
No, it's not a decision
We're
that
going
you
to
make.
interject just for a moment. I respect it's getting very heated and very passionate, and I know, Mr. Red, you want to follow up, and there's a lot you'd like to say. And Mr. Orange, we also want to get your perspective as well. We want to take a moment, though, here in BritAsia TV, just to say very adamantly that any form of violence against anyone is not correct.
Or any community.
It's not acceptable. Sorry.
It's not acceptable. But we will come back from the break and we will continue with this discussion point. If you would like to respond, then you can go to @BritAsia TV, where we will also be giving some helpline details for anyone who has any questions with regards to the issues we're discussing on the show.